All right, it is 10 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Concur approver sessions. In this session, we're going to review the whole approval process in Concur. We're going to go through what each step of the approval process does, what they're looking for. We'll look at the email you will get as an approver from Concur to let you know that you have outstanding requests or expense reimbursements. We'll go into the Concur application. We'll look at the dashboard so you can see where your approvals are located on the dashboard. And then we'll go into a request and into an expense reimbursement so you can look how you can view the timeline to see who else was approved, view expense lines, view attachments, that sort of thing. So if you have questions, please put them in chat. Alina, our Concur application administrator, will answer them, and whatever is left over, we will address at the end. I am recording this session and it will be posted on the Concur website if you need to view it again, or if you want to share it with anyone inside of your department so they can get they can also view. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. What you're looking at right now is the Concur approval workflow process. The top is the travel request. This piece right here is the travel request, and then this piece down here is the expense reimbursement. But you can see that they're very similar, and they work pretty much the same way that our e-travel workflows do today. We have some more approvals in Concur that were done on paper in e-travel, but the steps are all basically the same. And the steps start with the department's travel admin approver. So what you're doing as the travel admin, each org only has one primary travel admin. To be the primary travel admin, you have to submit a primary travel administrator form, and you get set up as the primary travel administrator to review for that org. That person can then delegate up to 99 different people, and so you can have as many different travel admins as you need to make it work for your department. But there's only one primary, and this step really, these folks, they know the travel policy. They've been trained on the travel policy. They know Concur. They've been trained on Concur. And so they know how everything's supposed to work. And they review to make sure that any requests that come in, any expense reimbursements come in, are within UMB and USM policy. And so they're making sure that if you're taking a 12-hour flight, you can't book business class. But if you're taking a 14-hour flight, you can. And they know all the nuances and can make sure that anything submitted is correct before it goes any further along in the workflow. Our next step on the request side is our international approver. So if you are taking an international trip, your request is going to route to our international office, and our international operations folks are going to review it to make sure that wherever you're going is safe and that you're approved to be there. If you do have an international trip, there's an international attestation form that has to be attached, and there's some security training that has to be done before you can go. But this step is just make sure that anyone taking an international trip, it routes to the right people so we can keep our folks safe and secure. The next step is the supervisor approver. So the supervisor approvers are looking at your travel requests or expense reimbursements and saying, yes, this employee has permission to be out of the office. They have permission to take this trip. This trip is, good. Whatever they're learning, if they're going to a conference, this applies to their job and is good for that. We loaded supervisors into Concur from timesheet supervisors, from timesheet approvers in HRMS. So if you are an HRMS timesheet approver, you are a Concur supervisor approver. If you have someone in your area who reviews a lot of timesheets, but they don't want to review any travel, they can delegate that authority and then turn off their emails, and we will look at that. And then they don't have to look at it, and whomever they delegate to can handle the approvers. The next step, and I'm going to run out of colors at some point, is the cost center approver. So these folks are very similar to the department travel admin. The cost center approver, there's one primary cost center approver per org. They can delegate up to 99 different times. So if you have a bunch of different people that need to be looking at things, or a bunch of different projects on the same org, you can have one primary, and then they can delegate to whoever needs to review and approve. And the cost center folks are looking at to make sure that there's money in the budget, that there's room to take the trip, that the trip falls within the budget and what they had expected. And then on the back side, that on the travel expense reimbursement, they're making sure that everything is allocated correctly, going to the right places. Maybe you're taking a trip and it's being split across a couple of different projects. So they're looking at it and making sure that the traveler, put the correct projects in. Just a note, the cost center approver can change the SOPF or project that a trip is assigned to. So if you have a traveler and they put in, they put a request in and they put it to the wrong project, rather than sending it all the way back through the workflow, if you're the cost center approver, you know where it needs to go. You can make that update, you can save it, and then you can approve it. Obviously you should note that you made the change just so it's documented, but it is something that you can do. And the same thing on the expense reimbursement side, you can change, every expense line and how it's allocated, and you can do all of that. And I'll show you where that is as we go through. So you don't have to send things back if you don't want to. You can make the changes yourself. Our next step, and this is the scary step, so I'm going to put it in red, is our CBFO approval. So Dawn Rhodes, our CBFO, our Chief Business and Finance Officer, is going to review any travel requests or any travel expense reimbursement that is outside of policy. And the biggest pieces of this are for travel requests, if you select exception booking on your travel request as your booking, it's going to go to Dawn Rhodes for approval. And what exception booking means is that you do not intend to book your flight in Concur. It's UMB policy. UMB policy requires that all flights be booked through Concur. So after you get your approved request, you go back into it, you select go to booking, and you book your flight. Or you, after you get your approved request, you call the travel management company and they book your flight. But all of the flights have to be booked in Concur or through that travel management company after you get an approved request. There will be very, very few exceptions that are legitimate exceptions to that. There are a handful, and that's why it exists. But if you put a request in, you say, I'm not booking through Concur, I'm going to book directly with Southwest, it's going to go to Dawn for approval, and I can tell you she's not going to approve it. On the expense reimbursement side, the two big policy ones are if you did book a flight outside of Concur and then you put your expense reimbursement in with that airfare, that will route to Dawn. And the other piece is if you do not have a fully approved travel request before your trip and you put an expense reimbursement in, that will also go to Dawn for approval. So a fully approved travel request is required before you can take a trip. That's not new. That has been the policy, the whole time. And there's been some issues with folks following the policy. So Dawn is reviewing any travel reimbursement that comes in without an approved request. And she said in the town hall that she probably will not be approving these. So you won't be getting your money back. So please make sure that your folks have their travel requests in before they take their trip. The next step on the expense reimbursement is, of course, central office. They make sure that everything looks good. It's like one final review. And then after they approve, your expense reimbursement will be sent for payment and you will be reimbursed. So that is the workflow process. I am going to stop sharing to clear annotations, and then I will reshare and pull up the approval emails. So as an approver, you will get an email when you have something that is pending your review. If you have a request is this email, the expense is this email, you can see they look very, very similar. They both come from this auto notification at concursolutions.com. Please don't block that email because then you won't see these emails show up. It'll come in from this, both of them. And then in the body of the email, you'll see some graphics and it'll give you the details on what's pending your approval. So who the request is from, the request ID, request name, some purpose and amounts. And the same thing on the expense. You'll see it come through name, report name, where it's going. justification for no travel request if that's an issue. And then on these, you will see a link, right? So you have this view report button over here, or you just have this link to approve request here. And if you click it, so you get the email, you click the link, it opens Concur. You have to go in through single sign-on. Is that? What's this? And it takes you to your Concur landing page. So this will open up. If you don't want to go in through your email, you can of course go in through your MyUMB portal page. You see your Concur travel and expense icon here. If you don't see the icon there, it is under the administrative systems as Concur travel and expense right here. So either way you get in, it opens your dashboard. So your dashboard is going to tell you what is out there requiring your approvals. So you can see, you know, there's 2 required approvals here. Down here on my tasks, it says required approvals. And then up here, you can go to the approvals area. So you get an email, you follow the link, you go to your My Tasks, you go to your required approvals. And if you're looking at requests, you click right here on this request. And these are the outstanding requests. This will show you what is waiting on your approval. And if you want, I will come back to this area. But if you want to see what you have approved in the past, you can go to this requests tab right here. And you can view, you can change your view, and it will show you everything that you have approved already. So these are the ones that are pending my approval. So the same one shows up. If I want to see everything I have approved ever, I can go to all approved requests and it pulls up everything that I've approved. The same thing on the expense report side. If you go to reports, it does show you what reports are pending your approval, right? That pops up first. And then you can go to this view button and you can see all reports that you've approved. And you can see any older reports that you've approved in case you need to go back and reference them. I'm going to go back to the approvals homepage and go to the requests tab. So you get a request, you get that email, you follow it in, you go into your approvals area, you go to your requests, you click on this request. This will open up all the details on the request. You can see what the lines are. So, you know, there's a hotel reservation, there's personal car mileage, and there's a per diem. Per diems are automatically calculated now in Concur. So this one's easy to review because it is based off of the header. So the per diem will calculate based off of when you're going to be there and where you are going. So Princeton, New Jersey, from April 2nd to April 6th, the per diems will automatically calculate. You can review the header information. Any of these trips, you know, it's out of state. Is the employee including any personal travel? No. If they are, then they can put their personal dates here. Is UMB paying for any portion of this trip? The answer is yes. If it was, you know, if it was no, if it was being paid by, you know, FPI or the conference, you can put no there. If the trip does include personal travel, please make sure the trip start and end dates include the personal travel dates, and then that the per diem is reduced. So there would be a per diem reduction expense type that will reduce that per diem amount. And as an approver, as I said before, you can change where this is going. So I could change where this SOPF or where the traveler had sent, you know, what project or SOPF they had charged for this request. You can make this change here to make sure that they got it to the right spot. And then of course there's any, you know, comments to and from approvers. So if there was something unique about this, the traveler could put a comment here to make it clearer. So there's, you know, you don't have to return it and ask the question. In the request itself, you know, you can check your personal car mileage to make sure that, you know, the traveler deducted their commute. So if you go to mileage calculator, you can see where they're going. They're going from, you know, their home address to Princeton, and they deducted the commute difference of their home address to the office. So, you know, you can make sure that that's in there. This is calculated again, so you don't need any additional attachments for this. These are the only attachments that are needed. So if you go back to personal car mileage, and then of course you can go into your hotel reservation. If you want to see that, you can check the details if there's anything, you know, they're paying out of pocket, whatever it may be. As an approver, you need to review all the attachments to make sure that, you know, what is on the expense request or on the travel request aligns with the documentation. So you go to attachments, and you can go to view documents, and then you can see everything that's attached. So there's a, the per diem is calculated, the personal car mileage is calculated. You don't need any attachments for that, but there is, here's the expense statement for the hotel. That'll, validate that amount. You can also, as an approver, attach documents. The if you get one and say you're the cost center approver and they had missed putting some attachment on there and you don't want to send it all the way back through the workflow, you can reach out to them. They can send you the attachment, and then you can attach the document there. If there's something internal that you need to attach, say your department has an internal process to approve a certain type of travel, again, you can attach, you can get a sign off and attach it here. If you need to print this request for any reason, you can go to print, share, and go to request travel detail report, and this will pull up a report that shows you, all the information that we've talked about, the traveler, the header information that we looked at, where it's being charged to, and then the expenses. It'll also give you the audit trail and the workflow history in here. You can save it as a PDF if you need to, or print it or email it, whatever you would like, if you need to keep documentation for some reason. And request details here. You can view the request header, which we looked at, but this is another way to get into it. So this is this information. And you can also view the request timeline. So you can see, where it is in the approval flow. If it's been sent back and forth, any notes would be in here. So Willa had submitted it. The Department Travel Administrator approved it, and that is with me as supervisor approver. After I approve, you will see this cost center approver pop up. The system will check to see who the cost center approver is supposed to be after I approve, in case that changes between when it was submitted and when I approve. So it'll get the latest information. And then you can also see the audit trail if you need to, which is a more detailed, it's more detailed information about, the route that the, that the request is taken. One thing I will note is that in the audit trail, it does note if you opened the attachments. So as an approver, you need to go in and check attachments to make sure that everything is in line. If, that's the role in your approval step. And the system does know if you looked at the attachments. So if you didn't look at the attachments and this gets picked for audit, the auditors will know that you did not review the attachments. So if you want to go ahead and approve, you can click approve. Everything's in order. If you need to send it back to the employee for some reason, you click send back to the employee. So I'm going to go back to approvals home, and we're going to look at the expense report. So again, you would get an email, expense report from auto notifications at Concur Solutions. You would go to view report. It would open up to your dashboard. In your dashboard, you would click approvals, and then you would come in here. So same idea as the request. You can go into this expense reimbursement or expense report. It does look a little different. The screens do look a little different from the request. You can see the warnings. So this report's going to go to the CBFO for approval because it does not have a corresponding request. You can see it right in there. If there's any other warnings out here, you can see them. So to go look for something specifically. So this has been out of pocket's been selected as payment method. Please ensure that the P card was not used. This isn't telling you that the P card is used. It's just saying that out of pocket was chosen. So please make sure this wasn't put on a P card. And again, in here, you can go through and you can check all of the different expense items. So you click on it, it comes over here, the transaction date, where the city is, and the amount. Same thing over here. Here's the per diems that were calculated for this trip. Personal car mileage works the same way as it does on the request side. You can go to the mileage calculator and check to make sure. So it was driving down to Charlottesville. So you can see on this one, there's no commute deducted. So if that's an issue and the commute does need to be deducted, it could be a weekend trip and the commute doesn't need to be deducted. But if it's a weekday trip or if the person's supposed to be working on that day, the commute would need to be deducted here. So you can see that. And then on the hotel, you can see, you have some errors. This is the warning about the out of pocket. You can also see that there's an attachment here. So Willa attached a beautiful poem for this. Obviously, please attach actual copies of your receipts. That's what you're looking for. But again, you can see the attachments. You can see the details here. Same thing as the request. You can print and email this expense reimbursement if you need to. So if you have to submit this expense reimbursement also to the Foundation to get a piece of it approved, you can go up here PDF, email, or print it. It gives you all the details, all the approval steps there. If you need to check all the receipts here, you can see that, you can view receipts in the current window. It brings it in as a pop-up. You can view receipts in a new window, and it brings it in up here. However you would like to do that. And then you can attach receipts if you need to attach additional receipts for the traveler if they did forget something. On the details, you can check the report header. Same idea. As an approver, you can update the SOPF here if you need to. You can also, as the approver, go into here and go into allocations and select each one individually. So say the hotel is being paid by one project, you can make those updates here, and the per diems are being selected by somewhere else. You'd have to go in, go into the per diem, select details, select allocations, and then change the allocation here. You can allocate it by percentage or amount. You can add a new allocation. And then if there's some saved, you can apply it. If you always know you're going to be charging the same project, you can save it as a favorite and then apply accordingly to save yourself some steps. But as I said, as the approver, you can make all of those changes. Other things in the details, you can see the approval flow here. So you can see that it was submitted. The Department of Travel Administrator approved it. It is now sitting with me as the supervisor, and then the cost center approver will come in after I approve. And then this CBFO approval will be in for this one because it does not have an approved request to go with it. And then it goes all the way to central office. And then you can view the audit trail as well if you need to. So right here, you can see receipt image was viewed on the 11th at 10:20. This is the one that I just viewed. You can also see I've been using the same expense reimbursement for all the other presentations and viewing them the same way. So there's a full audit trail here. I'm going to go back. So that's the expense and the request. This is how you approve. If you want to approve this expense reimbursement, you click approve. If you need to send it back to the user, you can click send back to the user. What I'm going to do now is show you how to set up a delegate. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard. And this will pull up my, the landing page for Concur. If you are an approver and you need to set up a delegate, or you need to check to see who has delegated to you, you can come up here and go to your profile and go to profile settings. And inside of profile settings, you would go down here to request delegates to see who your delegate, or to set up your delegates here. In here, you can see who is set up as a delegate. You can add and remove them. So I'm going to remove these two. You can see that Alina is set up as my approver delegate. So Alina can approve. She can view receipts and she receives approval emails. And then I'm going to add a delegate. So this is how you would add a delegate. So if I wanted my boss to be able to approve on my behalf, I would search for him and I would select his name and he pops up here. Approve. I would select can approve and receive approval emails. If I only want him to be able to approve for me temporarily, say I'm going to be out of the office for a week or two, I can select can approve temporary and put in dates here. So if I'm going to be out of the office next week, I can put in these dates and then he can approve on those dates. If you are someone who will be approving a lot of travel, but you want someone else to go in and review it for you, there is a neat feature where you can say can preview for the approver. So you can select this. And this person, so Charity would now receive the email that an approval is waiting for me. They can view the receipts, but they can only preview it. They can't actually approve it. So say, you're going to have someone who has 100 travel requests. Someone else could go in on their behalf, review everything, and then make recommendations to them. You should approve this one. This one has these questions on it, that sort of thing, to save that person some time if you would like to use that feature. If you need to set up someone to prepare on your behalf or prepare on a traveler's behalf, you would select the can prepare and this receives emails. So this would notify them of any movements with their travel request or expense reimbursement, and Charity can, of course, prepare on my behalf. If you need to delete someone, you select their name, you select delete, and you select OK. If you need to see who has delegated to you and who you are a delegate for, you would go to this tab, this delegate for tab, and you can see that Anna Borgerdane has delegated to me. So I can prepare on her behalf. I can view receipts. I receive emails. I can also approve. I don't receive those emails. And so, if someone needed to set you up as a delegate, you can go in and check to make sure they did. In case you're not seeing emails come through, you can go and say, oh, hey, you didn't check the received emails box. You needed to do that for me to get emails. So if you are a delegate approver, I'm going to go all the way back out to the homepage. So say that you have a primary travel administrator and you are the delegate travel administrator. When you need to go in and approve, you will get an email. You follow that email in. You click the link. You come into here. You will not see your that approval on your My Tasks and your required approvals because you have to act on behalf of the primary travel administrator. So to do that, you go in, you follow the email, you get the email, you follow it in, you go to profile, you go to act as a delegate for another user who has granted you permission, and you will only see this if they set you up as if someone has set you up as a delegate. And then you can search for their name. So Anna had added me as a delegate, so I'm going to select Anna, and I'm going to switch, select switch. And then I can see her dashboard, so I can see any required approvals that are outstanding. If you need help with any of these steps, the Concur website has one-page user aids on it that walk you through how to set up a delegate, how to act as a delegate, that sort of thing. We also have UPKs to walk you through any and all Concur transactions, including all of your approval transactions that you would need to do. And of course, this will be recorded and we will get it posted to the website in case you need to review this because you just love hearing my voice tell you how these things work, and that's fine. And that is all I wanted to cover today. So I'm going to stop recording and then we will get to questions.